Alright gang, let's talk about the VHS deep cuts that never made it to the video store shelves at eye level. We really had to dig for these, tucked behind the Friday the 13th Part 5 boxes, covered in greasy fingerprints and intrigue. These were the movies that separated the casual horror fans from the true tape traders, the ones who'd watch literally anything with a creepy cover and a runtime under 90 minutes. We're talking early 80s obscurity here, the kind of films that played at 2 a.m. on USA Up All Night while you were supposed to be asleep at your friend's house. The glow of the TV, the only light as you tried to not wake up the parents. Grab your warm Mountain Dew and some cold pizza and lean in towards that glorious 19-inch TV, because today we're taking a chronological ride through some wildly neglected slashers and thrillers from the turn of the decade that'll make you question how you made it out of the 80s alive. Alright, let's get into it.
What you see on the screen, a product of expressionist art.
I'll tell you what I see. It's a hot chick in trouble, and man, I want to save her. Picture this. You're rifling through the foreign horror section. Yeah, your video store was fancy enough to have one, and you spot this Italian giallo with a cover that promises everything your 14-year-old self wanted from a horror movie. And Torso absolutely delivers on that grimy, stylish promise. The plot follows a mass killer stalking art students in Italy, eventually trapping 4 women in a remote villa for an extended cat and mouse finale that'll have you genuinely stressed out. The secrets where one girl hides from the killer while he literally saws through her friend's body is brilliant cinema, man. During production, none of the cast was told who the killer was, and because of the high amount of red herrings throughout the entire film, many of the actresses were convinced it was someone else doing all the murders. And I won't spoil who it is. Directed by Sergio Martino, this one's got all the giallo trademarks: black gloves, creative kills, a jazzy score, and enough red herrings to stock an Italian fish market. Plus, it influenced countless American slashers that came after, basically writing the playbook for final girl trapped in the house with a killer scenarios that Halloween would perfect 5 years later on. Now let's talk about the reviews, man. 10 out of 10, perfect example of golden age giallo. All of the giallo slasher tropes are present. One of my favorite ones, a very early addition to the subgenre that set the tone for future installments. Very influential, very entertaining, great for any fans of the slasher genre as well. The very first 1 out of 1 I saw was this review. Torso starts off with a naked lady who has fine female accessories sitting well balanced somewhere between a 7 and a 9. However, it's a longer review. They noticed their error and titled their review, "Sorry, Wrong Movie." And I'm left thinking, what movie can I see a naked woman that's an 8 in the opening scene? Because I want to know what he was reviewing. What makes Torso such a Gen X deep cut is that it existed in this weird limbo between the artsy, like Euro horror your older brother's cool friend talked about, and the straightforward slasher carnage you could actually handle watching, making you feel sophisticated and terrified at the same time. This came out when the oldest of us was about 8, so if you caught this early, ouch man, rest in peace your reality.
What time is it?
6:30.
Man, 6:30 never sounded so boring in my life. We ask that you please bear with us because this gets way better. If you managed to find this one at your local mom and pop rental place, you either had the world's weirdest video store owner or you stumbled into the adults only back room by accident. And we've all made that accident. And this was gold then, and it's priceless today. The Love Butcher follows Caleb, a mild-mannered gardener with a club foot who develops a split personality. His alter ego is of his dead brother Lester, a smooth-talking ladies' man who seduces and murders wealthy women in Los Angeles, all while Caleb maintains his innocent daytime persona. His brother being deceased might be a spoiler, but trust me, it is not ruining 1 second of this flick, man. This micro-budget oddity plays less like a slasher and more like a sweaty psychological thriller directed by someone who for sure had an affinity for soap operas and drama. With our protagonist literally talking to himself in the mirror, trying to reconcile his two personalities in scenes that feel uncomfortably intimate, and wildly brilliant. There is only one 10 out of 10 review, and that seems crazy, but my bar is incredibly low. It's titled From What I Remember, and it's golden. It was the early 90s, and me and my two stoner flatmates loved watching dodgy horror movies from the local video shop. One day I showed up at home with this under my arm. We blew a joint and watched in awe, horror, and hysterics. The three of us all found the last scene quite disturbing, so much so that whilst the credits rolled, one of my flatmates stood up from his chair, walked to the video player, ejected the tape, placed it under an upturned milk crate in the middle of the living room, and left. Now, obviously, that's from the UK. I should have did an accent. I'm glad I didn't. The lowest review was a 3, and it was given by an asshole. The wrong kind of horror, he said. Why? This was a puerile mess. The acting was so horrible, it's no surprise most of these folks never worked again, and the ones that did were relegated to TV spots. Eric Stern stars as twins, one ugly, one handsome, both evil. His acting was almost laughably bad. I spent the whole time trying to figure out if he was serious or not. I rented this because of its graphic packaging. Boy, did I get taken. The best scenes are right on the box. There. Now you don't have to see it. You're welcome. Screw that guy. You have to see it. Shot for 40 grand across 12 days in 1975, but not released until 1982, and I couldn't find out why. This one's got that grimy, sun-baked Southern California vibe that makes everything feel threatening and stifling. Think of it as what might happen if Norman Bates moved to the valley and started a landscaping business. The Love Butcher is the kind of movie that makes you wonder how it even exists. It's a crazy, brilliant dream of awkward eroticism and low-rent murder that somehow made it into VHS and into the collective unconscious of kids who definitely should have been watching something else.
Sick with revenge, twisted with hate.
Guys, hands down, wildest place and time to get a haircut. What are we getting ourselves into? Klaus Kinski in an American slasher movie? Yeah, that happened, man. And Schizoid is exactly as weird as you're imagining it right now. Kinski to me was like an early Willem Dafoe, although as close as they ever got to each other was playing Nosferatu at different points in their careers. The film follows an advice columnist who starts receiving death threats in the mail while members of her therapy group, led by Kinski's creepy psychiatrist, start getting murdered one by one with scissors. Because the killer is making a statement about cutting people out of your life, or something equally on the nose for sure. Kinski brings his signature unhinged energy to every scene, making you wonder if his character is the killer, completely insane, or both. And spoiler, the actual reveal is somehow even stranger. While the rest of the cast stumbles through a plot that can't decide if it wants to be a giallo, a whodunit, or a Lifetime movie about toxic relationships. Let's check in with some reviews. 10 out of 10. This is a pure good... I could probably get a different voice here.
This is a pretty good thriller with a real mystery as to who is killing off Kinski's therapy group and why. The one that is being targeted is the advice columnist who is also starting a relationship with her therapist. Throw in an emotionally grieving daughter, a dark-clad killer, and you have a solid giallo-style slasher movie.
Well, that solves it. That's what it is then. It's not a Lifetime movie. Now for the 1 out of 10. The acting is bad. Everyone is just picking up a paycheck except for Richard Hurd, who angrily kicks a trash can in one scene. Otherwise forgettable. Kinski is funny to look at, though. Screw that guy. Director David Paulson shot this thing with enough style to keep it interesting, utilizing that early 80s softer focus and muted color palette that makes everything look like it's happening inside someone's traumatic memory. Plus, you get Donna Wilkes fresh off Jaws 2 in a role that's definitely not what her agent promised her. David Paulson was told by producers Golan and Globus that he had 1 month to have a screenplay ready that could be shot for under $1 million, and that could feature Klaus Kinski, who was under contract to do any kind of film. Paulson also had 1 month to secure a crew and shooting locations. Schizoid is the kind of movie that makes you nostalgic for when erotic thriller just meant people got murdered after some wild sex, not the overproduced nonsense we get later on in this decade.
All I know is today's October the 31st, 31 31 backwards is 13. It's Friday, it's Halloween. It's the 13th anniversary of the lawnmower killing.
You know, it's no secret I can't stand Billy Devane, and honestly, I can't hide my love for Joe Don Baker, and I'll apologize in advance for this even being on this list, but it's fun, and it's almost my anti-Halloween list apology entry. It seemed too kitschy to do a Halloween list for a horror channel. Either way. Well, here's where things go tits up. Somebody in 1982 looked at Halloween and said, what if we made this one, but it just made it completely stupid on purpose, and MGM was gonna distribute it? That's the wild part. Wacko filmed in just 25 days, and it's a straight up horror parody before Scary Movie made that annoying for everyone. Following a lawnmower wielding maniac called the Lawnmower Killer, who returns 13 years later after his original murder spree on, wait for it, Halloween Pumpkin Prom Night, stalking a group of horny teens who seem more interested in making inappropriate jokes than actually surviving this menace. The cast is an absolute who's who of, hey, I know that guy. Joe Don Baker hamming it up as a cop. Oh, I love him. Andrew Dice Clay in his first theatrical debut, and a pre-famed Julia Duffy, who, man, I drooled over when she was Steph in Newhart, and she's at 74. I'm still looking that way, man, for sure. All delivering intentionally terrible performances in a movie that's basically Airplane meets slasher cinema, complete with sight gags, pratfalls, and a killer whose weapon of choice leads to exactly the kind of ridiculous death scenes you're imagining. Other notables that auditioned but didn't get a spot include James Spader and Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Review time? Sure, why not? 10 out of 10, brilliant movie. I remember seeing this movie when I was a kid. I loved it and watched it at least 20 times from when I was 9 up to when I was 12. The video shop then changed hands to a big blockbuster type chain, and they got rid of all the old movies, whether they were popular or not. A fantastic spoof that combines so many of the horror films of the 70s and 80s. The alien chess scene with a small lawnmower is one of my faves in the film. Now a 1 out of 10. Come on, man. Horror, comedy, hell. Wacko tries to do for the slasher genre what Airplane did for the disaster movie, but it is nowhere near as clever or as inventive as the Zucker Abrahams hit comedy. If you thought that Scary Movie 5 was about as bad as a horror parody can get, well, you're probably right. But Wacko from director Graydon Clark, Without Warning and Satan's Cheerleaders, is not far behind. I don't know, man. I might side with the 1 out of 10 kid here on this one. But with this pure star power and execution, one seems just spiteful. What makes Wacko a true Gen X artifact is that it came out before the slasher formula got stale, meaning it was actually ahead of the curve in mocking the tropes, even if nobody saw it because MGM dumped it into theaters with zero promotion before it landed on VHS to confuse all the video store browsers. This had a working budget of about 600 grand, and only 260 grand in the day went to the bigger names. But that didn't leave much. But man, did they work with what they had. The car explosions, like that alone is the budget. It was great. This is the movie you rented thinking you were getting a serious slasher and ended up laughing your ass off at 2 a.m., defending its brilliance to your friends who just didn't get it, man. And you know what? I might have been one of those friends. But seeing it today, I did laugh.
Mom, what did he say?
Well, at first he goes, your daughter's gonna die tonight. Then he says,
Where'd you get that? In the room. Some crazy bastard used it to tear them a piece.
All right, gang, it only gets better from there. Just kidding, it does not. Now we arrive at Sledgehammer, the shot on video holy grail that makes every other movie on this list look like a Spielberg production by comparison. I'm including Schizoid. This thing was literally made by a guy named David A. Pryor, who'd go on to inflict deadly prey upon the world if you haven't seen that one. With a budget that was likely equal to his rent. It was shot across 7 days entirely on VHS in a single location, which incidentally was the actual director's apartment, with a cast of about 6 people and a ghost kid who may or may not be the killer's psychotic break, using a sledgehammer to exact revenge for... You know, and honestly, the plot barely matters when you're dealing with production values this gloriously terrible. What you need to know is that Sledgehammer features endless slow motion sequences, padding out that 87-minute runtime. Seriously, like a third of this movie is just people walking at half speed or down an incredibly long hallway to have sex. The most incomprehensible supernatural rules since Phantasm. And death scenes that looks like someone just smeared syrup on the actors and said, that'll work. Now lay still. Let's talk about reviews. I couldn't find a 10 out of 10, and sadly I could not find a 9 out of 10, and it just seems odd. This is iconic. I did get an 8 out of 10. A fine piece of cinematography. I rented the movie Billy Jack, but was pleasantly surprised to find that the woman at the counter had mistakenly given me a movie entitled Sledgehammer. Rather than correcting her, I gave it a try, and boy oh boy did I make the right call. One of the characters was so awesome that I based a Dungeons and Dragons character on them. My friend and I also based an entire campaign on this movie called The Fantastical Sledgehammer Wars of 1997. That review is nostalgia. Like, that is everyone's childhood. That's so beautiful. I'm so glad I found that. Now a 1 out of 10. And there were probably a bunch to choose from for sure. I keyed in on this one. Flat out bad. Remember in Friday the 13th how Jason Voorhees' mom hated those camp counselors who didn't save her son from drowning, so she lost her mind and went kill crazy? Okay, well, Sledgehammer pulls a switcheroo. A crap mom locks her young son in a closet so she can have sex with her lover. Yes, really. Yes, he's only credited as lover. I mean, if that's really their bad take on it, I think we got a winner. He just might have stopped watching when it just started getting good. That's my assumption. Well, here's the thing. If you were a kid in the 80s with access to the bargain bin at your local video store, or you knew someone who had a bootleg copy, Sledgehammer represented the ultimate forbidden fruit. A movie so raw, so unfiltered, so completely outside the Hollywood system that it felt dangerous just watching it. Like you discovered some kind of cursed artifact that would corrupt your soul or at least give you a weird appreciation for avant-garde incompetence. And that's similar to a corrupted soul either way. This is the final boss of VHS obscurity. The movie that validates every hour you spent digging through discount tapes looking for something, anything that your friends hadn't seen yet. Shit, this was it. I've seen auctions on eBay for this on VHS, and they go anywhere from $200 to $300. So if you come across an old cardboard box or clamshell that says Sledgehammer, dive on it, grab it with both hands, don't let go. Except to the right bidder.
So what do you think? Sexy enough for you?
What do I think? Damn, you look great.
I know.
You know, I can't think of anything more absolutely unhinged as these deep cuts that prove the early 80s VHS era was the Wild West of horror cinema, where anything could get released and traumatize unsuspecting Gen X kids for life. Hell, maybe these aren't the movies that define the genre, but they're the weird cousin Olivers that showed up uninvited to the slasher party and somehow made the whole thing way the hell more interesting. Thinking across this list and keeping either the giallos or the Sledgehammer / Schizoid in mind, what other titles popped into your head that you thought you totally forgot about? I'd love to hear about them and devour them like all the Sour Patch Kids from Halloween sitting on my kitchen counter right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I love you. And as always, stay cool, gang.